like ruler aside.
Yeah, definitely exciting to see that style coming in as well, because I feel like that's what LWX was known for on the Kai'Sa as well, during the team fighting, being that kind of assassin Kai'Sa all those years ago. So similar skill set coming out from both of our AD carries. But let's talk about the draft here as we get in. It's Jace and it's Jax being banned away, and Care having his Yone taken away, having his Tristana taken away, and now the Vi taken away from JJ as well.
So I actually really want to talk about this Yone ban a little bit. We're not going to see it, but the reason we're seeing Yone banned as opposed to something like the Sejuani, which is also another LPL specialty, we love both these champions here, is that Yone also combos up with something like the Maokai, which we're seeing less of nowadays. But if you're a team like Care with that Yone, or something like OMG or a team which really showed this first, being able to combo up this Yone with an aggressive top side means that you get to play a different version of the meta. Being able to kind of play towards topside is something that the LPL does uniquely well in regards to regions. Yes, across the world, you've got teams like T1 or whatever that play very well towards topside. Both of these teams have some ability to do that as well, particularly with a player like Ale. Very versatile, allows himself to play towards topside with a number of his counter picks. Something like this Gragas, though, I think it was Fudge actually on LCS just saying that this champion is just so broken as an early pick because it just survives in so many different matchups that even if you have counter pick, it's hard to abuse it. And even when you can find matchups that do, you just flex it somewhere else.
Well, unfortunately, it's going to be the Zeri locked in first, which is not super surprising. This is an EDG game. They do have leave. Why would you not go for the Zeri? Lulu's still available if they want to go for that. One thing I do want to mention is Chocho, massive Rakan player. In previous series, we've seen Sword Art stealing the Rakan away from Chocho just so that they don't have to play against Chocho's Rakan in lane. We'll see if EDG are going to respect that. I wasn't sure if they would go for a ban on that, but choosing to go for the Lee Sin instead. And they will just lock in the Lulu. So we'll see if Chocho's going to go for that Rakan and go for the all-in the bottom side.
And we were talking about this a little bit in regards to FPX kind of switching in Chocho midway through the split, and it has done an awful lot for the team. Of course, Shallow also going to be playing today instead of Fearness. They've been switching those out a bit more regularly, so this one's not as much of a surprise. But against Ale in the top lane, very much important to stress the importance of holding LA down. In the bot side, though, potentially getting yourselves an Aphelios Annie. This is a flex pick. You can, of course, have Annie in mid lane or support. Annie is one of the better lane pairings for Aphelios, and you already know the lane that you're up against. You can actually just hold that a little longer. Kedden, one of the LPL specialties as well, had a lot of buffs this patch, has been incredibly strong. But it's not going to be locked in just yet. Something to just... I like these hovers from EDG in a certain sense, because one is baiting me in, but I can see that they are powerful at that point in the draft. And if I think they're powerful, you look at the players of FPX on stage and just think, what are they thinking EDG can bring out? EDG are such a versatile team. It's very hard to tell which direction they're going to go next in draft.
Yeah, it always is. It always is. But JJ, going with the Maokai, this is actually his most played jungler of the split, which is kind of surprising. There's not many junglers in the LPL that still have Maokai as their number one. But the Nautilus being taken away from Chocho, trying to remove the potential engage out of the bottom lane, believing that Care is taking this Annie to the mid lane and that it won't be flexed down bot for Chocho.
Yeah, EDG, they want to wear cargo pants today, Munch, because they're trying to create more pockets for leave on the Zeri to find space and team fight. The Maokai ult, it helps with that.
That was terrible.
It was, and yet you have to sit here and just accept it. Because that Maokai is going to throw that ult, and someone like that Wukong or the Aphelios, they struggle to deal with that. You have to back off. You don't have a great way to fight through that Aphelios ult. So now FPX, they need to find some ways to get through it. I wonder whether they want to be looking at something like a Scion. I think that's why they're banning away some of LA's more anti-tank champions. If you have something like a Scion, you can kind of at least tie up the Zeri long enough that they, and also tank the Maokai ult, that maybe you can kind of have a two-phase team fight. Kind of soak up some of the big abilities, go in afterwards with the Scion. EDG should be expecting this, though, and they do have last pick, counter pick. Wondering where they're going to save that counter pick for, though. Ale typically has been the player which has been the counter pick top laner of the LPL. He's probably got the largest champion pool of our top laners here. That's a dangerous thing for FPX.
Oh, that'd be exciting. It would be exciting. And also, it kind of fits into the Fofo play style historically of playing scaling control mages that you can then take over the game in team fights on. Like, we know him for the Azir, we know him for the Victor. Will be the Victor that's locked in the end. It would have been exciting to see the Ace Solver.
It would have been... I don't know. EDG, I love talking about the hovers, even though it's kind of like the Cardinals in a drafting, just because they are such a versatile team. On the other side, FPX, you are dealing against a composition which has currently better range than you with stuff like the Victor and the Maokai ult kind of really causing you a lot of issues. Returning the favor with the Aurelion Sol.
Oh, they
and
go
is
for
locked
it.
in! It's more than a hover! A-Sol locked in, there we go.
Exciting stuff. Care bringing an Aurelion Sol to that mid lane, which I will say, this is not the style of champion that you usually think of Care for. Like, his big champions are like the Akali, the Sylas, the Yone, these aggressive assassins. A-Sol very much in the scaling side of things. SHANGHAI, who goes for the Cassante as well. And Ala now with the counter pick needs to find something for the top lane. Perhaps we'll just go safe because we've got a lot of scaling on this side from EDG. I do worry that maybe it's too much scaling, but equally, there's a lot of scaling on FPX. I feel like this could be quite a slow one to kick us off.
Yeah, because both of these teams have significant disengage now and not a great amount of ways to go forwards. Now, I think if you play the macro well, there are ways to catch people out. That will be what accelerates the game, if anything. But when you have Victor, Aurelion Sol, somewhat similar playstyles in regards to you want people to dive into you, into a Chaos Storm, into the Sky's Descent, something like that. Very high damage as the game goes on. And now with that on both sides, both of these teams understand you gotta hit these carries hard at the start of the fight. If you can't do that, maybe don't look for the fight. Might lead to this slowing to a crawl.
Certainly could, but that is EDG's comfort zone. That is where EDG come alive in the late game. We'll see what FPX are bringing to the table here. They do have an Annie in their team. So, sorry. Yeah, they do have an Annie in their team. I saw the A-Sol on my screen and it broke my brain for a second there. Perhaps we could see Chocho making things happen. We talked about his Rakan, and he certainly can be aggressive as well. So maybe HYCAN can make his way down into that bottom side. We're looking at LWX versus Leave as we enter this one. The veteran world champion AD carry for FPX up against this brand new rookie that looks like an absolute prodigy for EDG. We'll see who can take it as we head into game number 1.
Heading towards that rift ever so soon. This is only the second game of Aurelion Sol in the LPL this split. The first game was by Rookie. It was a loss versus TT. Didn't do too badly individually, but we haven't seen a whole lot of this champion over in our region so far. It's cropped up a lot in the LCS, a little bit in the LEC as well. It's been cropping up here and there. Of course, this is patch 13.5. Aurelion Sol had some hotfix nerfs. I think actually had some actual nerfs at that point as well. I mean, they're both actual nerfs, but you get what I mean. Not just the oh no, this champion is too strong, but the hang on, let's be a bit more considerate about this. But for those of you that haven't seen it so much, if you're kind of LPL aficionados and you haven't cast your eyes to the wider world, Aurelion Sol takes a little while to become a champion. Once you hit level 9, you get to be really, really strong because your main damage comes through from your Flame Breath, the Q, which I cannot remember.
Breath of Light.
Breath of, that's what it's called. That's where they changed the name to.
They took the old name and put it on the Q.
So I'm normally pretty okay with ability names. I'm trying to break the mold of colorcasters only call things QWER. I even know the Aphelios ability names, which okay, not as much use in those, but with something like the Aurelion Sol, you really need to wait until level 9 increases the range of your Q, increases the duration you can cast it as well later on, importantly too. But it does mean that despite Aurelion Sol previously being a champion that could get out of lane, affect the rest of the map, it is harder to do so nowadays. You do need to bide your time a little bit more before you become the main character of these kind of games.
Yeah, and it's a pick we haven't really seen in the LPL, like you say. There's been a couple of games of it, but generally speaking, it's not been a priority because we have so much aggression, and like you say, it takes a long time to come online. But in a draft like this, when you're against a Victor, when you're against a Zeri, perhaps this is the perfect game for Care to show us what this Aurelion Sol can do. Heavy trading in this bottom lane. These bot lanes are going toe-to-toe. We said LWX versus Leave. Feels like, I mean, honestly, it feels like Chocho versus Mako right now.
A little bit, because that's just support matchups. Supports do hit. It's going to be a little bit of hard trading across, but support matchups do tend to solve these 2v2s. I guess I do really want to go back to what can happen in the speed of this game. JJ trying to find an opportunity.
SHANGHAI who walked towards the brush to try and ward it. It's an easy first blood for JJ. Super fast gank.
And that's very important because, so yesterday we saw Bin do absolutely disgusting things in a split push scenario with the Nard getting ahead, hold break the second Care. So he said, needs to really scale up over time. But Ale getting a kill participation towards that top side, not having to blow any summoners of their own, very important. There aren't that many opportunities to influence the game that early for both of these junglers, honestly. There isn't that much setup around the map. There isn't a huge amount of damage either, so JJ making the most of this. And JJ had a very, I'm not going to say unexpected, but very well-needed return to form in this split. It's been very core to what EDG have been trying to achieve in 2023. HYCAN looks making him move towards bot side, but Leave with E just goes up this wall, I think. Yeah, it's very hard to gank his area like this, especially when you don't have hard CC.
And this is one thing that EDG do exceptionally well, is track the enemy, right? JJ going to be able to finish his blue buff. HYCAN is going to be spotted doing the scuttle crab, but there was a ward on the Raptors that gave JJ space to go for the gank in the top side, and then there's a ward in the river, so that when HYCAN tries to go for this play in the bottom lane, that the bottom lane of EDG are already aware of, they can easily get out. Fofo now, the one in trouble. Will they be able to finish him off, though? The double stun comes out, and he just waltzes away.
Okay, so this is going to be a really deep cut. You know the movie White Christmas? It's not the time of year.
Vaguely,
there is one scene in that just springs into mind there, where there are two people talking to each other, and you know, one person's basically just there, is like, wow, he's a real fast mover, isn't he? He's like, wow, he's really the champ. Absolutely glacial. That is the mid lane. We're in here with the champs, folks. These folks are going to take a very long time to come online. They're real slow movers this game.
Yeah, you say that, but Fofo has been looking real good in the trades in this lane. Like, we saw Care forced back to base as Care opted into a trade with his Breath of Light, kind of stood still channeling that. And Fofo just bodied him in the meantime, just blasted out his whole combo, shielded most of the damage, and just sent him home.
I'm feeling charitable today, so I'm going to just say that Ken knew he was resetting and hopefully just uses HP as a resource. If that's not the case, things are going to be very worrying. The main skill of Aurelion Sol is knowing when to press your W, because as you were saying that, you have to stand still and press Q so you actually get value out of this champion. That's where you get your damage from. The only time you get to move and do damage is when you're in flight. And that's a very long cooldown, and it only resets when you get kills. So kind of a bit like a Cassiopeia in that regard. So you need to be very careful with your position. You do have very good damage, but only in the right kind of circumstances.
Yeah.
So really have to see whether Care has mastered that kind of technique. Again, we haven't seen a huge amount of this on the LPL stage.
It's going to be, when it comes to this matchup as well, it's going to be all about the gravity field. Like, if Fofo positions too aggressively, uses his gravity field aggressively, that's Care's opportunity then to just fly at Fofo, channeling that Q, and can get massive damage in. That's his window. It's just whether or not Fofo is going to be using his gravity field in that kind of way, because let's be honest, Fofo is an exceptional laner.
He absolutely is. And that's a really good point to bring up as well. Well, look, it's going to be a slow early game. I don't think there's any threat of dives coming in across the map. I think we've seen a lot of what we're going to see. Maybe we get something around Carol. First Dragon has been typically quite important for a lot of teams. I just don't think there's a great amount of setup for either of these teams to launch a big fight around it. But Fofo, now, this reminds me a little bit of the conversation around a player like maybe Yagao last split, someone like that, where Fofo is not regarded as like, or at least wasn't regarded as like one of the really elite mid laners. He is good. He was seen as good. But actually, was he going to be the difference maker, one of the top 3, the top 4 laners? Not a lot of people would have put Fofo up in that top of the list, but Fofo in this split has really stood toe-to-toe with pretty much all of his opposition. And I think that's really unexpected. And again, EDG, it feels like every one of the sum of their parts has started to punch above their weight.
And I think part of it as well is like, it says a lot about the team Fofo was in last year versus 2021. Because in 2021, Fofo was this lane-dominant monster on the side of RA. He was this beast that a lot of people were having him in their top 3 mid laners of the split. They couldn't quite make it work. They couldn't quite make it to Worlds. They couldn't quite finish things off. And it feels like that's often been the story for Fofo. Like you're saying, last year, he had some good performances. I feel like it was a much worse year for him for 2021. And I think a lot of that is down to like mentality of how well the team is doing. And now he's on a team that is functioning efficiently. It feels like Fofo is fully back in the driver's seat once again.
Now, he was just bought a reset by, I think both junglers just swang by mid just to make sure that both these mid laners have reset before what could be a Herald fight. I think that basically these mid laners just reset to make sure that the other team couldn't do Herald when it comes up to that spawn. Again, I don't think either of these teams wants to be sat on the objective at this point in time. That comes a little bit later into the game. I think both these teams very strong once they hit some items and they can sit in river first. Don't think their time is just yet. It might not be their time for quite some while yet, Munch. So, what's your topic of the day? What do you got for me? Got anything you particularly want to get out on the riff before we get into the action?
Well, not particularly, to be honest. I feel like my big topic for the day, my big topic for the day is LWX versus Leaf. The problem is, like you say, that topic's a little while away from happening. The topic could be Ala versus Xiaolao, who is Ala just destroying Xiaolao, who's sending him backspace. Chocho in trouble as well as Leaf goes aggressive. LWX trying to trade it back. See, this is what happens. The second you say it's going to be a quiet one, everyone starts fighting.
HYCAN has his ult, but again, the first part of these fights is fine, where you can kind of get a little bit of damage down. Actually pinning someone in place long enough to kill him, that's the difficult bit. Double cleanse on the AD carries, maybe you can catch out a support, but even then you've got heals there too. You don't even have an ignite in these bot lanes. It is all just these brief moments of dopamine where you get a little bit of damage, and that's kind of it after that point. With that trading in bot side, it does mean that HYCAN can at least clear out some vision around this jungle. Vision probably the next thing we could talk about because, again, it feels like the name of the game up until we hit maybe 2 items. We'll see if it comes a little bit earlier than that. Is really what's going to happen in terms of who gets the objective first and who can peel off of it at that kind of time, really. Because both these teams, they want to sit in an area and deny an area of the map, deny entrance into the river. Vision helps you do that. You see EDG currently been one of our best vision control teams in the entire league. Got a lot of vision towards this bot side of the map, just to make sure that they can spot out if FPX do anything tricksy. It's hard for them to land any big knockout blows, and actually, Jid is going to be the one that's caught on vision just now. But again,
Ultimates?
very low action. Very low action. No one has any way to make these plays stick.
No, ultimates available for both of our junglers here, but not going to commit to it. Obviously, the ward spotting JJ, I think, was enough for him to stop going for the play. Care continuing to be bullied here by Fofo as Gravity Well goes down. And Fofo is just going to continue hitting. Ala, though, stuck in mini now. Xiaolao, who potentially has an opportunity here. Half HP on Ala as the knockback is there. Xiaolao, who forces the flash. And Ala will escape.
Uses ult to do so. Very brief moment in time, just trying to judge that mini knock. Maybe the difference in levels, the difference in damage right there. If you had that max level in those and Tofo strikes, maybe would have been enough damage. Because of that, EDG end up finding a gap though, where HYCAN was positioned on the map. Get themselves that first dragon of the game. Took a little while. It's been kind of like a little bit of a dance around each other, trying to avoid each other on the map. EDG get themselves the first objective of the game though.
Yeah.
If that becomes 2 early dragons, that does change the equation though. Both these teams, as we said, want to play a little bit slower. The FPX get themselves so they have to fight around dragons, they have to engage into EDG around later dragons. That could be a difference maker.
HYCAN really wants to get involved in this bottom lane. He's trying to sneak in, but Leave spots him. Leave moving forward aggressively in the lane. I don't know if he was looking for the player there, but here come the ultimates. Leave with the lightning clash, the roots across the team. HYCAN's the target. He was just trying to help the lane, and he's been bodied instead.
Oh my word, this is like choosing immobility as a mode of transport, because neither of these teams can lock anyone down. Neither of these teams can actually make any of these initially good trades into something that sticks. Very, very hard to lock down someone like LWX, and of course they still have themselves the Severum ult. They're all the same. Could have healed up with the Moonlight Vigil coming through from that lifesteal gun. It's a decent trade to get a reset, but this is just so slow.
So, big opportunity here for FPX. The Sky's Descend is available for Care. I would love to see a play somewhere on the map, and it might well be top lane, as you can see Care moving on over, but decides against it in the end. But that Sky's Descent, this is the upgraded version of the ASOL ult. It's huge, it stuns, it blasts magic damage. Like, yes. You do not want to get caught out by that Fallen Star.
Absolutely not. I think at this point, now we have our ults available, there are some options. It's just whether the damage is behind those big CC ultimates. From FPX, you are really relying on a big Aurelion Sol ult because the Wukong can't necessarily make everything that easy. Shallow, who gets caught out in a 1v2 here.
The all-out comes out, but the twisted advance follows it. Ala still in mini now, though. This could be bad news for EDG. It's JJ, the target in the meantime. Ala desperately trying to stack up to Meganar, but Care is here, and the skies will descend. Ala, the target, returns Mega. Can they finish the kills off JJ? First to go down, Mako trying to save his top laner, but chased down himself. Meganar goes wide, and Ala now the target. 2 for FPX.
Well, you called it. First big Aurelion Sol of the game. The skies descend. And as to EDG's top jungle into the underworld, first couple of kills for FPX in the game. And reminder, this is a team which is 3-11 versus our first place team in the league. But FPX kind of called this out already. They look like they've had a bit of a glow up. Playing with a bit more confidence, maybe the lack of stakes for them in this split, allowing them to play a little bit more freely. Care is the one to get onto the map, use that Aurelion Sol in the way which only this champion can do right now. Very few games in the LPL, making good use of it in their first fight of the game.
And I think it's really important that FPX do show up in this early game and mid game and make sure that they're in touching distance, because if you don't pressure EDG, they are going to walk away with a gold lead. It happens every single time. They get to the late game and they're just so far ahead. They're so dominant in team fights that you just can't touch them. So when you're both running a scaling composition, you can be aggressive. If you both have late game compositions, you both have equal power in the early game.
That's true. Like against another team, maybe like, oh, don't really have the tools to fight, but they don't have tools either. So even though, again, you can see that it's very hard to make these engages stick, it's enough for FPX to bring in the big guns.
Cool.
Mac rounds spinning up, calling that from orbit. Big ult, such a cool particle effect. I love that we get this kind of T-Tools. I love it so much. And this is very important to see. You can see that again, like with those resets as well, Aurelion Sol gets to reposition for a lot of their damage. It's actually at the point where Aurelion Sol is one of the better pentakill champions in the game because his W allows him so much mobility to give him access to targets outside of these scaling mages, like someone like a Victor or a Cassiopeia that can sometimes struggle on that front. Herald summons in the bot lane for important not Aurelion Sol, that's on the other side of the map. Aphelios is a champion that really wants to be ahead of the game. Still flash though. Not
yeah, Lanek'll stay ahead here. The cleanse comes out. Oh my days, nearly one-shots JJ. And he will just have to walk on that bottom side. I feel like JJ went into that play thinking, we've got the advantage here. It's time to kill Aphelios. And it all just gets completely switched around. LWX annihilating him.
Yeah, try to start a forest fire there briefly. JJ just about to get out alive with his bark unburned. Doesn't even have to blow that flash. I was wondering a little bit what's going to happen there because LWX got, of course, caught under that tower. You can see the difference in what can happen with an Aphelios when they have that turnaround potential, giving gold over to an Aphelios. If you can get that bot turret down, if you can secure that, that would be very, very important to the AD carry of FPX. And again, it kind of buys into LWX's return to form as well. He's been playing a lot of the Veigar recently, going back onto something a bit more hyper carry-like. Has some tools to really explode this game as the game goes on.
HYCAN Chocho trying to make their way towards this dragon, but I don't think they've got a way into this one. HYCAN realizing it, goes over to his Krugs. And we talked about it before, this will be 2 drakes now for EDG, and it sets up for a Chemtech Soul. Not the most impactful Soul in this kind of late game scenario. What just happened to the Rift?
Text is not loading there, methinks.
Let's spam those T-Tools again. Okay, lightning crash at the bottom side as HYCAN goes to the Cyclone, but the roots coming on through. The clone will be able to block them, but LWX might not escape on this one. The teleport smash and Fo's here. Gravity Well will stop the re-engage. Shallow who's TP'd in, but I don't know if he can survive 4 people. Everyone just walks on past him. The Chaos Storm down. Shallow who's still going as a Comet falls, but do they have the damage? Care on the front line, he stayed too long. Lee flashes into a knockup, and he's taken down instead. Shallow who putting EDG in their place, chasing for more as he looks for more knockbacks, but Fofo dodging it. Mako on the front line as well. The flashes forward, Fofo down, Mako taken out of the picture, and FPX playing a blinder of an early game.
If both teams are scaling, either of them, you still have the tools to fight in the early game compared to your enemy team's composition. That fight was a real mess again because these fights are evolving into a point where you have to take these fights in multiple stages. The first stage is throwing out the ultimates and seeing how much you can soak. Can you soak the Maokai ult without losing too much of value? In this case, Actually, EDG, they get the enemy AD carry down early, but this ward behind them, it's late enough into the game now, folks. Teleports are unlocked, which allows SHANGHAI to get into the backline. Maybe later into the game, this Cassante might struggle to get onto the targets he wants to, but gets enough done at this point. And the mages, despite them being late game carries, find some ability to get some damage off right from the start.
SHANGHAI, massive all out there, but an uncharacteristic mechanical mistake from Leave there. Sees the play, wants to be the big carry, but jumps right into SHANGHAI's knockback and sets up for FPX to take over the fight. Like, Care doing so much damage there as Leave just steps right up in front of him and gets like, well, I'm Aurelion Sol and you're CC'd in front of me. Time to breathe fire, baby. As EDG now.
Has his powered ult, so diving onto Care would be very, very dangerous. He also has himself a lot of the kills which have happened so far. 204, 7 stacks on the Rod of Ages, and has a Rylai's. So that engage, which is already fairly hard to kind of get together, is going to be even harder to stick. Because when you throw down that big ultimate, that's of course going to spread loads of damage across the team fight. And someone like Fofo or Mako that don't really have much ability to kind of continually join the fight. They just need to be in the right position. It's going to be that much harder to do so. It's not like they can dive him under turret. Just throwing the Chaos Storm just to stop him from wave clearing.
Yeah, they can't actually threaten the tower though, unfortunately. So perhaps a little bit of a waste of that ultimate. As Leave looks for a chance in the mid lane onto LWX. We'll just get a bit of damage. And he actually threw one of his Qs towards the wave there, so I'm not sure he was ever really attempting the kill, just making sure he could pressure and fight for mid prio.
He wanted to kill off that turret, because it turns out, FLS when he has turrets, really kind of scary. So you're just trying to kill those ads, like the raid boss, got to kill the mini things beyond them sometimes. Actually, interesting thing about this AD carry matchup, because again, slow game. Let's talk about these builds a little bit. We've seen a lot of Bloodthirster first on the FLS. We see less of that versus Zeri, because people forget that Zeri actually steals shields with her passive when she damages them. Giving free shields to a Zeri, particularly in a game like this, where Leave, despite that bot lane fight, has been incredibly good at using their HP as a resource, finding those pockets, as we've been calling them. Giving them the extra shield means that maybe just wait until that Bloodthirster second item, stop them having that power quite as early into the game. The second Herald picked up, FPX is going to walk away with that one. Maybe they can bust through something like this mid lane turret, that'll be the biggest objective for them. Maybe get themselves some vision control after that point.
Well, it might be Fofo's chance now to finally get this bot lane tower that they were trying so hard to get earlier on. Will be a tier 1 taken here, which puts EDG slightly in the lead in terms of towers, but still a little behind in gold overall. FPX have done a fantastic job of finding themselves that lead. And we've been talking so much about everyone wants to scale up, everyone wants to get multiple items. Well, we are getting to a point now where Care, he's about to hit 10 stacks on his Rod of Ages here. He's already got his Rylai's there. Like, this Aurelion Sol is coming online.
Yeah, and particularly at level 13, your damaging abilities are maxed out at that point. Your E does an awful lot of ability to kind of slow people down as well. So many ways to kind of lay down a minefield of skill shots in front of you to make this harder.
Leave stuck at the front, has to dash away. Big damage across the team, but they can't quite finish anybody off. LWX jumps on in, but he sacrificed himself for the play. It's too much, and now Leave pulled over the wall. Xiao who is the hero of FPX this game. Ala chasing down Jojo. He's gone so deep for the play. Will trade his own life for it. And Xiao who, I don't know how, but he got out of the play.
I mean, he's coming into this series, replacing Fearless in the starting lineup for this one, and he's making good of the opportunity for himself. Against EDG, currently the best team in the LPL, the most versatile team in the LPL. Xiao really stamping home his mark. Problem is here for EDG across this fight as they start up this dragon. They really want this, but can they force it against Kev? He's got so much damage left.
And this is the zone control that the Aurelion Sol brings as well. Fofo forced out. Actually, Mako knocked over the wall. Xiao who is destroying EDG. This is a match where EDG should be heavy favorites, but FPX are sparring with them, going toe-to-toe.
At the end of that, though, HYCAN goes down, so with no smite, the dragon can't be secured by FPX. So, despite the fancy moves from Xiao EDG potentially, I don't know what's going to happen with these resets after this point. Maybe there's an angle for them to get the dragon after this point. Mako very importantly flashing out from that initial engage. And if the initial engage goes awry, so many different champions can start taking over this. We've focused an awful lot on Karen Xiao for FPX. LWX, someone we've set up with great narratives, great responsibility, as one of these great AD carries across the region. Going a little too far in that case.
I feel like K'Sante is a really good answer to Zeri. Zeri, a champion that wants to play next to the wall to escape?
Very true.
K'Sante would love for you to be next to that wall, and SHANGHAI, who's showing us multiple times now. Dragon started. This would be third for EDG, and they are doing their best to just keep FPX at arm's length. Hacker isn't here yet. He's at the other side of the wall. He's coming from behind the fight. This could be a massive Cyclone angle. SHANGHAI buying space. In goes Hacker with the Cyclone. Moonlight Vigil onto Leaf, but he's still going. JJ goes down. That's a jungler. EDG can still win the fight. FPX is down. Leaf looking for Jojo as well for the double kill, but it's a double for Care on the other side of the play. Leaf has to be the carry here. As Fofo forcing FPX away. Hacker still alive. Does not have Smite though. FPX forced off, and EDG will get the dragon.
So they get themselves soul point. Is this the most consequential soul of the game? Absolutely not. Chemtech soul is not necessarily the best thing on the patch right now, but it is still mutual objectives and potentially forces FPX to fight into EDG for that fourth dragon and ones beyond it as well. You could see in the lead up to that fight, Leave was really looking, again, for those pockets where he can hop over a wall into the backline, gets onto LWX in that one. And FPX, despite seeing Leave on vision, couldn't deny this all-star Zeri player from making the big plays. They were going for their own big flanks just before this, but Leave, with the Bloodthirster built up, has a bit more ability to brawl around this, and Chocho and LWX kind of left out to dry on the back end of this team fight, and has enough damage to clean up there on the back end.
Yeah, easily able to finish off a support there. Leave is getting to that scary point in the game that Zeris do get to. You can see 2 items there headed towards the Navori Quick Blades as well, and that is where we start to get terrifying on the Zeri. But both of our mid laners, 10 stacks at this point. Care has hit a 3rd item. Remember, he got a double kill during that play. We've been talking about scaling up all game long. Care has scaled now. This is a terrifying Aurelion Sol. A single level more, and he's got that maximum level ultimate as well. And, I mean, honestly, if he gets a big ult off, I don't think the fights are winnable for EDG.
Especially if that big ult allows someone like Hacker to keep in the play as well. It kind of allows him to have this 2-part combo. Chocho's going into the engage too. Here we go.
Oh, Fofo too aggressive on this one. The CC chain is absurd. He goes down. Can they find more? JJ next target. Leave stunned up as well by Jojo. He's finding everything. A triple on the Aurelion Sol, and he wants a little bit more. Care diving in.
He just keeps getting these resets, 8-0 and 6. Care just has to sit there and just press Q. That is what FPX have set up their composition to do. Set up this Aurelion Sol with all the resources in the world. Let him do the damage. EDG, they get caught out. That's going to lead to a Baron. And in a game between 2 scaling compositions, EDG, they get themselves the big dragon stacking. But losing the Baron could be a huge turning point in this game.
And I want to reiterate to everyone at home that this is FPX that are 3-11 in the league against EDG, who are 12-2. And the big strength of EDG, the thing that everyone touts this team for, is late game team fighting. Well, FPX have entered this like mid to late game. They've entered these team fights and they are dominating EDG.
Yeah, Fofo just way too far up. Chocho slips off the vision. Squirrel slips up on the vision control. Chocho, the one that really kind of catches out Fofo at that point. And Leave, despite having multiple items, it's just not comparable when you lose that scaling mid laner too early in the fight. Doesn't get a big Chaos Storm down. Doesn't get big ability to kind of get backline access. And EDG, they're going to have to start problem solving their way through this now. If you're not winning front to back, if you're not able to kind of sit there and out-damage frontline to frontline, you have to find a way to get to Care. He doesn't have something like a Zhonya's right now. He doesn't have himself like that stasis ability, but has enough HP to make it very difficult. EDG, what are you going to do about this big old dragon in the backline?
He doesn't have a Zhonya's. He is very close to having a death cap, though. That is a terrifying
It's a dragon with a hat!
thought.
It's a dragon with a hat! Danger!
Yeah, and he's got his big old ulti online as well. Be afraid, EDG, because Care is coming for you. And at this point, the gold lead is not that significant for FPX, but it's enough where EDG have to be terrified coming into a team fight. The Zeri's still not on 3 items. This game is all about Care.
It is, and the vision control they have in the bot side jungle is really helping with this. You see, he's just teleporting to the bot lane. Everywhere there is fog of war on EDG's map now, you just need to cross it out and just say, here be dragons. That's it. We found them. We found the recipe. This is why all of those medieval maps used to say that, because actually it turns out Care was there. It's down
almost the entire gold lead is in Care's pocket. He's 3,500 gold ahead of Fofo at this point in the game. I mean, you know, there's that new Dungeons and Dragons film came out. I think it might be about Care.
Yeah, his encounter rating going very, very high at this point. Call up your local adventurers. Find yourself a knight to slay this one. He's not on this game though. He's waiting in the wings. Care at this point, you know, he goes back for. It's like, I mean, at this point, you know, he goes back for one more base, and at EDG, what do you do? The damage on this point, it is all about, can you reach Care? I mean, maybe at this point, EDG can try and catch people out isolated across the map, but they don't have the vision control to do that, because again, FPX have been moving around as a unit. They've been very careful about the areas of the map that they're playing around. It doesn't even matter that, you know, you don't have the same levels on your AD carry, which has typically been the, you know, the kind of the game-winning player for you at this point. And you can see EDG, I think this is probably the correct play. Try not to play around grouped up objectives, try and find yourself some wins across the map. They do have the luxury of having all of these early dragons. So they don't necessarily have to fight for all of these related ones afterwards. Maybe they can get themselves a bit more gold in pocket, get to the point where maybe you get 4 items on leave, he can get somewhere into the backline, but this to me is still delaying the fact that you need to beat Care in a fight at some point in this game. Do those extra items help you when Care is just this strong?
Well, it's going to be a question of whether or not Care manages to get himself a stopwatch, I think, because Aurelion Sol, no matter how much damage you have, he's still quite squishy. Leave will two-shot him if he ever has the chance. If you can get that Maokai in there, perhaps there's a world alongside a Meganar that you could get a CC chain long enough for the Chaos Storm to come down, for Leave to get his damage down. But it feels like that's not down to EDG. It feels like that's down to Care making a mistake, and that is a terrifying position to be in.
Yeah, I was replying to a comment or something on another game recently where someone was like, "Oh, how do you deal with this champion?" And sometimes it is just really sucky to just feel like your options are waiting for a mistake. It's not in your control at this point. You're hoping that Care is out of position. You're hoping that he's not at the fight. You're hoping that someone else can get burned down away from that. That's what you're really waiting here for as EDG. Now, they are a very intelligent team. They managed to play out their macro particularly effectively across other games. Speaking of that,
this is a bad moment to talk about intelligent macro for EDG, because Ala is solo pushed in the bottom side and easily punished. That is the biggest Custer curse I've ever seen. Oh dear, yeah, Ala, a little too far forward there.
But that's what they have to go towards. Like, Ala is literally just there like, well, gotta go play some smoke and mirrors, see you in the side lane, folks. And then you kind of forget that Aurelion Sol is one of the original side lane champions from back in that Season 5, Season 6 era. Back then, of course, he'd be like level 2 ganking bot lane. That's what he used to do after the first wave. Absolutely. Insane stuff. But like, how do you do side lanes now?
The thing is, as well, one of the big things in the rework for Aurelion Sol was a lot of people disappointed by the fact that his Astral Flight is very short range at the start of the game. But the thing is, it scales infinitely now. And the amount of Starlight stacks that Care has been building up over this game, like the amount of farm that he has, he flies a long old way at this point. Like, he can go from the mid lane to the bottom lane probably to be able to find that. He's had his Skies Descend online and available for ages at this stage. Like, he's not been using it, so he's still just stacking up. That's like easy. 434 Starlight.
It's like, welcome aboard the FPX Airlines. I'll be your captain's vacation. We'll be flying at a height of approximately 6 feet across Summoner's Rift, and expect some turbulence as we cast the Skies Descend. Enjoy your flight towards the Nexus.
Yeah, pretty much. Sending them not only to the Nexus, to the Afterlife at this point. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, maybe
I don't know if there are commercial flights to the Afterlife. But,
well, that's what Charon does. He's like the boat. He's like the riverman, the boatman towards the underworld. That's about as close as he gets.
Over the river Styx.
Yeah.
I too have read a book.
Yeah, I too have played Hades, the video game.
It was the West. Oh yeah, that exists.
This is not in fact a speedrun though. Of all the things you can do competitively in that game, this is not going to be the fastest of them. I think we're doing like 100% clear on this one, going through all of the various different story options.
Yeah, these two teams are completionists.
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, leave by FunPlus. He flashes away, almost finishes the dragon, and he's trying to escape with his life. But the ultimates come through. The skies have come crashing down around EDG's ears.
Oh my word. Well, okay, completionist run starting to advance a little bit quicker. Cat not actually shut down in that fight. He doesn't even need to go for the stopwatch. Has enough damage and he's teleporting back in.
Meganar could be enough. They knock HYCAN back, but Fofo doesn't have the damage by himself, and the Dragon re-enters the fray. Care burns them to smithereens, and he's chasing Fofo down through the jungle. The stun will be enough for Fofo to walk away, but I don't think that he'll last any longer, because the Nexus surely will be threatened. No. TP comes out for Fofo, they can't end the game.
Yeah, Fofo's teleporting back to the local tavern to post a quest posting for killing this mighty beast in the mid lane. 11-0-8. This is one of the very few games of Aurelion Salt you have seen in the LPL. It's brought them around the rest of the world, and we've decided to join them with not a care in the world, but one on the Rift. This champion is absolutely busted when you're playing scaling for scaling.
And I like what Leave was doing here, ultimately. He does nearly get his opportunity, but HYCAN getting the knock-up, has to flash away, and then LWX is all actually doing a huge amount of work here, following up on the Sky's Descent. Oh, Mako. Sad times.
It is a little bit. Sees the giant man from the top lane running at him. It's a little bit panicked at that point, but you even have the completed voice. Oh no. That's just too much. It's too much! The burst on every Q. Whenever you keep your Q on a champion, you know, it takes up, you see that ring around them. When that pops, it is so much damage now. No Zhonya's needed, no stopwatch needed. You have an elixir of sorcery as well on Care. He has 838 AP.
Yeah. Just a quick note, I'm pretty sure I just saw when they hovered the Aurelion Sol passive, his singularity, which is his E, it executes when you get below a certain threshold.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, that said 12.5%. If they get less than 12.5% HP, that's essentially... Care is the Elder Dragon at this point.
Yeah. I was about to say he's got like Syndra ult when that's upgraded, but that's even better and much more unfitting. Care is absolutely the main character of this game, and who would have thought that going up against first place EDG 12-2, pretty much locked into top 2 at minimum. It would be an absolute crazy turn of events if they were not to make that margin, but FPX about to pull out a fly in the ointment. In this case, a really large dragon. Not sure how that's fit in the cup, but they found a way.
And I feel like Care really showing us versatility across the course of his career, right? Where he came into the league pretty much only playing Galio every game. And then this year, we've seen a lot more like AD assassins like the Yone. We've seen a Carly coming out from him, Silas. His rise has looked pretty decent. Now bringing out the Aurelion Sol, it feels like this guy is an exceptionally versatile mid laner and has looked good in multiple styles. It's really impressive to see for such a young player.
Yeah, EDG, it's been their calling card, that versatility. The damage from the E, that's just a quick DOT. It's not even got a Leandries on it, and still chunking down the tank of the Maokai just a little bit. You can't even afford to step anywhere near it. The E starts to increase size as well as you start to get more Stardust. You don't have the big ult though. No stop.
Flashing onto Claire. Care knocked back. The Chaos Storm is there. Allen finishes the job. EDG take down the raid boss. Can they survive the fight though? Leave needs to keep going. He's chaining the lightning. He's trying to get the lifesteal out and keep stacking on up. The knockback could be everything, but he dodges. HYCAN low on HP. Jojo low on HP. Leave looking for more as he dashes over the wall, but he can't quite close the gap. The lightning might be enough. Can he finish off HYCAN? It's not gonna happen, but he's still going. He finally relents and FPX walk away.
It's a 1-for-1, but not all 1-for-1s are made equal. Munchits the dragon down, quest posting very briefly ripped down from the tavern walls. EDG somehow find their way onto Care, who of course does not have a stopwatch, did not have flash, didn't have a way to save himself in that scenario. Key moment for EDG. If this is going to be a turnaround, it has to start with something like this. Of course, no Sky's Descent either. It wasn't the empowered ultimate. That was, maybe things turn around as well. This feels like the only way they could have won this fight, and it's still, even after all of this, is a 1-for-1. Fofo goes down. Leave can't quite secure anything after that point, and we're getting to the point now where we're back onto the Rift. Baron is not alive for another 2 minutes 20. We don't have another dragon. We're going to go back into a bit of scaling. Well, that means that Care gets to just keep stacking, and I believe he does have the empowered ultimate again.
And there's a really scary factor in this, and that's that Care didn't have his flash for that previous play. JJ did. And now Care's flash is back available. and JJ doesn't have his.
And
yes, you took down the dragon once, but
can you just stop?
Can you do it consistently?
This makes me feel very uncomfortable. I don't feel safe. I don't feel... Maybe
EDG
actually.
Don't either. I'm not sure. Like, honestly, players in the LCS, players in the LCK, they're all afraid that Astroflight's going to come out from Care. Yeah. He's going to descend on their game. I don't know who's playing in the LCK right now, but they need to watch out.
So, I used to be a big player of Warhammer, the tabletop game, and I used to go into various shops to play that. And actually, I grew up around the place where Warhammer World was. And there was like a running joke at one point where there was a model that was so strong that people on other tables would take their longest range weaponry and just point it at the big thing. Care is actually both sides of this equation, where here's the thing where everyone in the neighboring games goes, can we call in some like air support here? What can we do? And then also is flying between the boards as well to be the absolute bringer of doom. Really feels like a sign of the apocalypse at this point. At least he can't get any stronger with items, and Fofo's completed the death cap. EDG is starting to come online with their own items after this point. That stacking is still so hard to deny.
Ala not with the team right now, and not in Mega Nard, not got anything on his bar. They need to be cautious. I'm not sure EDG won this fight. LWX up on the front line, trading with Leave. Does get stunned, but no follow-up from EDG. And again, Ala, look, no rage whatsoever in his rage gene. SHANGHAI happy to be on the front line here. EDG still look like they won this one. Ala almost gets one shot. Give him the honey fruit. The Comet comes down, big damage across the team. It nearly finishes off Ala. FPX, they've won this fight without even fighting. Ala falls as the roots come across the team. Leave has to be the carry. Jojo down. Look at the dragon on the back line. Flames spit across the lineup of EDG. And Care tears Edward Gaming apart. He flies towards victory as Fofo is taken to pieces. The Elder Dragon is on the rift, and it's piloted by Care.
Here be Dragons, quadra kill for Care, and against the 12-2 first place EDG, it is FPX who come out ahead in game one.
And I think we know what the learning point will be for EDG in this one. And it's ban Aurelion Sol. There's no way that you can play a scaling game against this champion when you have no way to start fights, to dive onto him. Care was untouched almost the entire game, and he has dominated Edward Gaming.
Masters of the mythical beasts, Phoenix in their name, Dragon on the Rift. The former world champions, of course, from the LPL before EDG, FPX, they come out absolutely swinging in a matchup which I think a lot of people would have written off, and, you know, on another day, maybe you could have done. State team which is not making playoffs. They are definitely towards the very bottom end of our standings, but you cannot write off any